Thank you, Mr. Travers, for your time. Really appreciate that. How are you doing today?
Doing wonderful.
Okay, Mr. Travis, my first question. So I've been, reading about your work, and it's very, very impressive. So first of all, congratulations to you for everything that you're doing. I mean, this is very inspiring, I must say.
Well, thank you. It's actually has not so much to do with me. It has more to do with the calling that I had
Tell
to
me
do
about that.
because this. Oh well, I'm a pastor,
Okay.
so I was doing different types of ministries, and I read an article about this young lady named Brittany Drexel, 17-year-old high school senior from upstate New York,
Uh-huh.
and this is in 2009, and she went missing, and I thought, where's Brittany? Right? I mean,
Uh-huh.
just because of my police background, it just works like that. Like, where's Brittany? Well, I knew working in police work in the 80s that the cartels, the prison gangs, and the street gangs had taken over the narcotics industry in the United States. And, here, that's how they distribute and do narcotics here. So into the 2008, 2009, the same I call evil triad of street
Uh-huh.
gangs, prison gangs, and cartel members took over the sex trafficking trade, specifically child sex trafficking. So when I read this article, I thought, I hope she didn't get caught up in this. Well, about a couple months later, I read another article in 2009 also about United States Navy SEALs going overseas rescuing children. And so
Mhm.
I got a hold of these guys and I said, we have a problem here with the cartels, with the street gangs, with the prison gangs. We need to do something here. So we formed together, decided we would only use United States Navy SEALs, police officers who become licensed, insured private investigators. We would never charge parents for money, and we would always be a volunteer group. And in December 2014, we had our first operation and our first recovery of a 14-year-old child who was trafficked since the age of 11. Now, 11 is very significant because today, right now, 2020, there's a
Mhm.
movie that just came out called Netflix, Cuties, of
Yeah.
11-year-olds
Yeah.
dancing sexually suggestive dances. And you know what I call that movie? Netflix poured all this money into this movie and made the perfect recruiting tool to recruit little girls here in the country.
Yes, and me and some of my friends, we are about to sign a petition about that. So I totally agree with that. On the name of art, they are just making that kind of content available, and it's just not acceptable.
Oh, it's disgusting. Not only that, but we have, and I can show you, Saved in America has an acronym we call GROOM, GROOM, and
Uh-huh.
it's the 5-step process that pimps and predators do to groom children for child sex trafficking. And on these steps, I can show you here, is the 5 steps to groom. Each and every one of these steps are in that movie, Cuties, the
Wow,
grooming process.
wow.
So it's just really, really sinister.
My God, this is disgraceful. It's just such a shame. Where are we heading, our society? Um, anyway, Mr. Travis, I'd like to know how come Save in America came into existence. Please tell us about your story, your leadership team. I understand now about your calling, but I want to hear more about your leadership team, who all are there, and how come this Save in America idea, came in. And just please tell us more about that.
Oh, sure. Well, so we're going back again, 2014, we had our first operation. It was very successful. We worked for about 2 weeks straight, and we did all types of different methodology. We did some sting operations. We did some phone calls. We did what we ended up taking what we decided to do and narrowing the focus. And the focus became, after that first operation, that we would assist parents and law enforcement in the recovery of the runaway child. Because the idea is to get the child before the trafficker does. There's been several studies on this, and one significant study that's in our book, by the way, we wrote a book regarding what we do, Investigation of Missing and Exploited Children, the Gateway to Child Sex Trafficking, is that a runaway will be approached within 48 hours after she runs away by a trafficker. There was another study by Dr. Amy Carpenter of University of San Diego in coordination with the Department of Justice, released about a year and a half ago now, which states that at any one time in this country, there's about 300,000 missing children, and a minimum of 30% of these missing children or runaways are being trafficked. So if you start to think that through right now as we're speaking here, there's 100,000 children being trafficked in this country.
Wow.
So we took that formula now between December 2014 and today, because just this last weekend, we assisted in another recovery. So we've helped recover 245 children. Our process is a 6-step process. And here's another form. And it's the acronym RESCUE, RESCUE.
Uh-huh.
And what it outlines is our step process. Our first step in RESCUE is record. And what we do is we get together with the parent, we get a power of attorney, we get intelligence and information that we need, and then we go into a planning stage. From there, we move that information over to our social networking investigator. And what he does is he starts to make a matrix of all the social networking, not only for the child that's missing, but for every person, now you can imagine this, that's been in contact with this child through social networking. I mean, just Facebook alone, most kids have 1,000 friends. So you can imagine this matrix. From this matrix is we just figure out, we get a good idea on what's going on in the child's life. So we turn that information over to what we call our intelligence investigators. And these are usually our police investigators, which will go out and they'll confirm some of this social networking intelligence. Once we get a certain chance, and that's about a 98, 99% chance that, in fact, this child is going to be over here, we turn that over to our actionable investigators, which are our special forces guys, our Navy SEALs, our Marine Raiders. We even notice I'm drinking green tea this morning because we have a member of our team from the British SAS. So we bring tea to the party in addition to coffee. So we actually go out, we do a strict surveillance. And when we get eyes on the child, we have already coordinated through our law enforcement liaison, who happens to be my friend, happens to be my son, Joshua Travers, who's a deputy sheriff in Virginia. And he's our law enforcement liaison. So he has already set up law enforcement to help us out when we get eyes on the child. Once we get eyes on the child, law enforcement comes in, extracts the child, and arrests the bad guy if the bad guy's there. From that point in time, we go to our last step, which is our attorney then will file a civil suit against any property assets from the bad guy. And we turn this package that's case managed over to law enforcement, whether it's local, state, or federal. Now, one very interesting case we had a 14-year-old girl that was seduced by this grooming method from the area of Reno, Nevada. The bad guy, the gang member, was a 28-year-old gang member out of San Diego. And he kept seducing her, enticing her through the social networking, to where she said, okay, your life, he twisted life around for her to where if she went with him, everything would be great. And that's what they do. They mentally seduce the girls. So she said, well, come get me. So he drove up to Reno. She snuck out of the house. Her mother woke up the next day to take her to school and her window's open. Her daughter's gone. She was with this gangster, took her down to Mexico and started selling her in Mexico. So we located her, worked with the Mexican police. We got her recovered. And this was about a little over 2 years ago. Just 2 days ago, 3 days, Friday, So Friday or Thursday or Friday, we got a call from the detective saying that he got convicted and got a prison sentence for 9 years for kidnapping her. So that sort of like takes the whole process together from the time we get the call from the child all the way through recovery of the child, the prosecution, and then the bad guy goes to prison.
Wow. So, so tell us something about the most difficult case or most challenging that you have cracked, and something that you're very proud of.
Sure. This case that I'm going to talk about was on HBO Vice.
Okay.
So if you or your audience wants to go savedinamerica.org, go to our media and look for our HBO segment. On this case, a 14-year-old girl was enticed again through the social networking, groomed through the computer from some gang members here in San Diego that are affiliated with the cartels. Because you have to remember, we're talking about, if you show me a gang member, this is the trafficker. Show me a drug dealer, that's a trafficker. Show me a trafficker, that's a drug dealer. It's all the same. The street gang member, the drug dealer, and child sex trafficker are all the same person. There's no difference. That's the industry that they're in, criminality. Mm-hmm. So these gang members enticed this girl in Utah and then went and picked her up. And we even have a video of them plying her with alcohol in the car, 14-year-old. They actually took a video of it. And so we retrieved that video. And then they took her down here to San Diego. Well, her mother filed a report, police report, and of course the police, and this is not saying anything negative about the police, because I love the police, that's the background I come from, is it appeared to be just a runaway case. See, in a runaway case, unless there's some evidence that it's very, very urgent, or the child has some medical condition, they just write a report, they send it into the FBI file that this child is missing, and that's basically it. A detective doesn't even get the report for about a week. Now, if we go back to what I was talking about, that one study, that in the first 48 hours, a runaway is going to be approached by a trafficker, yet the police detective doesn't get a runaway report for a week. So you see the problem. So this is what Saved in America does. We fill in that gap on that time. So this girl, it ends up down in this cartel house. These gang members beat her up. They take her cell phone. They rape her. And then they move her over to another staging house. And she's already been sold to another gang member in San Diego. I mean, in Mexico, across the border. So what happens is we get the case from mom. Mom calls us. And we look at all the intelligence, and then we see some of the social networking. Hey, this is really urgent. So we end up going through social networking and getting ourselves someone undercover at the cartel house. And we're using that information to finally get over there. And we got over there, and you'll see it on HBO just in time, because they were getting ready to take her over the border to Mexico. And when we got her out of the house, she was under the influence of heroin. Because what they do is they beat them, they rape them, and then they ply them up with drugs. And they want them to be on heroin, because once you get that opiate in the child's system, all the child wants is heroin now. So that was a very, very interesting case. I'm talking about on the fly. We were with the HBO crew. They wanted to ride with us. Mm-hmm. And our intelligence was changing from one moment to the next. It was really an incredible case.
Wow. So do you think the cases are increasing from 2014, or they are like the same, or it's going down, all these trafficking cases in America?
Oh, they're definitely increasing. Actually, it's even worse now because of COVID-19. I disagree. You shouldn't have these kids at home on the computer. These kids need to be in a classroom. So what's happening is these kids are now on their computer, just like you and I are, And this is all these predators are trying to get them in the computer. So they're more time on the computer. There's actually a warning by the FBI. You can go on the FBI website right now and see that all these traffickers know all the kids, the ones they want, the 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds, 17, are on the computer. So they're just waiting to make contact, to befriend them, to groom them and pull them out. So this is the case. These are the types of cases we're seeing in 2020.
Right. So, Mr. Travis, I interview people from all around the world, and sometimes they are government official. And when discussing the same issue with a police chief from another country, he mentioned a very critical point. He said it's very important for all organizations or NGOs that they are well connected, not at a national level, but even at international level, because when these children or minors or women are they are kidnapped or they are lured into it, they are transferred to a different country, and when that network is strong, it helps. So do you agree with that? And if yes, do you already have, are you well connected? Where do you operate in terms of area? Are you well connected outside that state or United States? So how does what is your take on that?
Well, you really have to divide human trafficking, especially child sex trafficking, into two different areas. We have what we call, we're the only NGO that actually helps recover children in this country, in the United States. But the way traffickers work is totally different outside of the United States. In the movie Taken, where they actually kidnap children, that really doesn't happen here in this country very often, because the police departments are so well coordinated. A car comes up to snatch a child and you have helicopters all over the place already. In other countries, it's a whole different way that they solicit the children, get the children, and then move them around in different countries. So mostly American children are seduced here and kept here by the gang members here. Every once in a while, there'll be a case where a child answers an ad to be some type of model in some foreign country. And for some reason, she ends up leaving her home, becoming a missing child, or unbelievably, a parent lets her go. And then they take her passport and there's that story. But that's a rarity. Over 90% of the children that are trafficked here in this country are through this system of these street gang members and prison gang members and cartel members. Now, I don't know if do you understand the correlation with a street gang member in this country and a prison gang member?
I mean, yeah, you can explain.
Yeah, there's a direct correlation. So what happened is, and I'll just talk about my time in law enforcement in the 80s, towards the end of the 1980s into the early 1990s, the prison gangs, and there were four main prison gangs at the time, and they're separated by race. The Mexican Mafia, which was Southern California, the La Nostra Familia, which was Northern California, were Hispanic gangs. The Aryan Brotherhood, it's a white gang, white supremacist prison gang, and the Black Guerrilla family was the black prison gang. So if you were in the majority of all, let's say, black gangs in this country, are Crips or Bloods. So, but if you're a Crip or you're a Blood and you go to jail, because that's really where you belong anyway, because you're a criminal, and eventually you're going to get caught, they go into the prison system, and what they want to be now is a Black Guerrilla family member because they're on top. Well, the prison gang members figured this out and decided, well, what we're going to do is we're going to make an allegiance with the cartels. The cartels give the drugs, sell the drugs to the street gang members to distribute. So what they did on their allegiance, the prison gang members said, well, cartel guys, when you guys end up in prison and come here, we'll take care of you, make sure nothing happens to you. You need to give us your balance sheets on who's getting the drugs on the street. And then they decided, the guys on the street, you need to pay us insurance money, because when you end up in prison, if you didn't pay your taxes to us, then we're going to kill you. And that's exactly what happened. So when a street gang member wasn't paying his percentage of sales to the prison gang member, they had a long list of gang members who wanted to join the prison gang. And one of there's actually 3 requirements to be a prison gang member. Number 1, you have to be a heroin addict. Number 2, you have to be a street gang member. And number 3, you have to commit a murder in the prison for the prison gang.
Wow.
So that's how they control this triad. You see how it's controlled?
Uh-huh. Wow. Mr. Travers, if somebody wants to reach you, how can they contact you? Or they want to report?
The best way, the best way is our website, savedinamerica.org, savedinamerica.org. And on the website, there is an emergency call line that you can use, or you could email us and get a hold of us. The website has a lot of wonderful information. We have a Facebook, Twitter, and all the other things that that you use in social networking to get the word out. Because right now, if you're a parent in this country and your child is missing, you can go on our website right now, fill out an application, it says need our help, and we will help you find your child.
And there is, you are an NGO, right? You don't charge anything for it. It's free for them. Just to.
It's free for them. We have 3, our 3 pillars are we never charge a parent to help them.
Great.
The second pillar is that we're all volunteers, and the third pillar is we only use former police officers and special operators who become licensed insured private investigators.
Awesome. It's very inspiring. Thank you. It was really nice speaking with you.
Oh, thank you very much. And together, you and me and our audience will work on this, because that's probably the biggest evil, the biggest slavery in the world right now, is the enslaving of our children.
Absolutely.